Hello, this video is an introduction to the synthesis FRQ, which is question 1 on the AP English language exam. So let's start with a quick review of what is synthesis. If you take a look at the image on the screen, I put a woman in with the thought bubble, and it has a bunch of different sources: the news, science, books, a computer, and then it points to an idea or a thought. And that is just to symbolize how synthesis requires consideration, explanation, and integration of others' arguments. It's a combination of ideas to form a theory. And so what we see here is that what we do is we take in information that we learn, and then we create something original, and we have a new idea. When synthesizing, we draw arguments from multiple sources. We strategically select the most relevant information, and we combine specific source material as part of the original argument. So for the question 1, which is the synthesis question, what it really is a mini research paper. The College Board will provide 6 to 7 sources, and you must use 3 sources to compose your own argument. So this is the synthesis argument, but it's an argumentative essay. What that means is that you'll need to take a stance on an issue or topic. What they really want to emphasize that it's civil discourse. You're going to demonstrate a good understanding of both sides of an issue. You want to acknowledge counter-arguments with refutations, rebuttals, and concessions. In order to do this, what do we need to know? Research requires us to apply the following essential knowledge. Some sources are more reliable than others. When incorporating evidence or sources into an argument, the strongest arguments recognize and acknowledge the biases and limitations of materials and account for those limitations in their reasoning. The degree to which a source does or does not consider other positions reflects the degree to which the source is biased. So when we are selecting sources, we want to be aware of these things. And if you are still picking a biased source, you should definitely acknowledge that bias in your commentary. Additionally, we want to consider how a position and perspective are different. Sources can have the same position yet have different perspectives. Perspectives can be influenced by backgrounds, interests, expertise. So perspectives might provide a different reason for the position or stance the author is making. Okay, now that we've gone over what you need to know, let's go ahead and turn the page to the prompt that I provided for you. So what you will see on that prompt, the one on the screen right now, is different, but you always will have the background information and the question provided, and then here you see the sources listed. When you are responding, after you select your 3 sources and you write your response, you do need in-text citations for this one FRQ. This is the only one that requires it. And you may cite the source A, source B, etc., or use the descriptions provided in the parentheses. Additionally, if you turn the page, you'll see the different sources provided. And at the top, you will see the source label and then the MLA information. Things to consider would be, author's name, definitely date for relevance, or even maybe looking at the domain, what it was published in. This might give us some insight on the perspective that the author might bring to the topic. Something else important to note is that the suggested reading and writing time for this particular free response question is 55 minutes. So they give you 15 additional minutes to read through the sources and plan for your essay. Okay, so now that we've had some orientation, let's talk about what we need to do to answer this prompt. Well, we need to be able to evaluate the validity of the sources. Again, referring back to that MLA source citation is when was it published, where it came from, who is the readers were likely to be, what its purpose was, how objectively it was written. Then you're going to read through the sources for understanding, to analyze the author's position on the issue, for evidence and data that help define your position. The key thing is that we are reading for ideas, as that pink bubble says. Because ultimately, for this prompt, we are arguing ideas and not things. By ideas, what do I mean? What I mean is abstract, intangible concepts. So, for instance, we sometimes see this with theme like economics or revenge or ambition or technology. So let's go ahead and do a little practice. These are the pre-writing steps I recommend you take for this prompt. First, you're going to want to annotate the prompt for ideas and make a list. You're going to circle and underline the ideas that are conveyed in the prompt primer and or something tangible that relates to something intangible. Then on the prompt page, list them. Then you're going to read the sources for position, perspective, and ideas. Circle, underline, or note the ideas that sources relate to. Also remember to evaluate the source. Add notes to the list on the prompt. Indicate which sources correspond to the ideas and indicate the position. If this seems a little abstract, what it might look like is you're going to read for the prompt and say the prompt's talking about economics, power, and equity. And I'm noticing that source A talks about economics and it has a positive position. So what I'm going to do is on my list, I'm going to put A and then put a positive. And then maybe I'm noticing in source B that it's talking about power and leadership, but it has a negative stance on the topic. So I'm going to list it here. So let's practice this idea. Go ahead and pause the video and take 2 minutes to look for ideas represented in the prompt. Okay, so I circled government, education, STEM disciplines. I noticed that we have the word technology and technical and workforce. So some ideas I think I might be looking for. Definitely I'm thinking about education and what that means. But also STEM and how it relates to technology, to the economy, because it talks about workforce. And I'm also thinking it's interesting that the government is playing a role. So I'm wondering if this has an idea connected. I'm gonna look for ideas connected to government and maybe power and influence. Now that you have completed the first step of the pre-writing, which is to annotate the prompt for ideas and make a list, I want you to now read the sources per positions, perspectives, and ideas. So that means you're going to read through the sources and look for what their stance are. What are they arguing? Then you're going to add notes to the list you created on the prompt, which might look something like this. When you're done reading through the sources, take time composing a thesis statement on the back of your handout. There is also room for you to record ideas of how you might approach the prompt. These could just be bullet points of ideas. When you're done with that, I highly recommend that you review the argument essay thesis statement handout so that you have a good idea of different ways you can compose thesis statements. Also, I recommend reviewing argument writing notes and the line of reasoning notes we did in Unit 2. If you don't have these in your notebook, I posted these slides on Google Classroom under Important Notes and Resources. Another good thing to do is look at your Unit 2 mini argument essay. Review your essay, the comments, the rubric, and reflection. After you're done with this, you'll be ready for class when we get to go over some of our ideas, our thesis statements, and then we'll get a whole new prompt to practice with. I'll see you then.